That one's recording. And here we go. Starting Facebook Live. Hi, Unstuck and Unstoppable community. It's Linda and
Craig. Hey, how you going?
And of course, we're here tonight to talk about intimate relationships. It's one of those awesome things in life, and it could be one of the most awful things in life as well, depending on how things go. We have them as ups and downs, and everything sideways. They're really a part of the human experience. So welcome to tonight's webinar, and we hope that you get some valuable insights from it.
Yeah.
Just our background as far as intimate relationships go. We've had an intimate relationship for about 6.5 years, but before that, you know, we had a few things that worked and a few things that didn't go quite so well. We've both been divorced, we've both got children for other partners, and we've sort of experienced the ups and downs of that, and I think we've worked it out. I think we've pretty much got it down, don't you reckon?
Close, I suppose, if not down.
Maybe not, judging by that nod of the head. Well, he puts up with me anyway, so amazing that you know that we've got that experience to draw on, because I think it's a really important thing to be able to come from that aspect of failure just as much as it is coming from that aspect of success. So as they say, make your mess your message. So I think we do that very, very well. So kicking off tonight, the first thing about intimate relationships is to recognize that when we go into an intimate relationship with somebody, we start a relationship, we bring with us a set of values. We bring with us a sense of who we are in the world. We have an identity around what we're doing. We've got certain activities that we do, and we certainly have that set of values that it's listed in a hierarchy, and we bring that with us into a relationship, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, when we actually find some common ground with somebody who shares similar values, not exactly the same values, but similar values, we start to connect. And that's actually not just true for intimate relationships, but also for, of course, friendships. Friendships are based on a lot of values that are aligned together as well. The difference being is that when we start to get involved in this intimate relationship, we find that we start to change a little bit, don't we?
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, for various reasons, societal, family, other people's expectations, and our own expectations on ourselves, we start to slide a little with regard to our interests and you know, what really drives us and our passions and those sorts of things. And we start to remodel our time and our value of hierarchy doing those things that we used to love about our partner and or our kids, and our time spent doing things is doing different things all of a sudden. So over time, actually, not all of a sudden. Yeah, well, you know, on this relationship, and it's all fun and beautiful, and you want to spend as much time as possible with the person, and that sort of thing. Eventually you sort of run out of cool things to do, so that even that narrows down from being this wonderful partnership of getting out and about doing things to just sitting on the couch watching TV or something like that. But yeah, so we want to spend more time in those relationships, and we give up on some of the things. Now, sometimes that happens because we perceive that our partner doesn't want us actually doing it as well. You know, there's plenty of times when, you know, and I hate to say it, but it's says to the man, oh, look, that, don't you think you should give up doing X, Y, Z? Because, you know, we've grown that now. We're adults. We've got to play the adulting game now, sort of thing. And that's not necessarily the case, because if you love somebody and they really love doing something, we need to be strong enough in ourselves to be able to let them go and do those things and enjoy those passions that they've had in the past. Yeah, really important, because otherwise they lose a sense of who they are. Is that what you think? Yeah, I think so. And I think there's other impacts as well. If we're not living, you know, in alignment with our values, or at least those that are kind of highest on our hierarchy list, then life starts to become a little bit more vanilla, and you know, there's less sort of passion there, and less purpose as well. So there's not quite as much depth or richness to life as there can be when we're living in alignment with those values.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then the person that you started going out with is not the same person that you're sitting next to on the couch anymore, because not only have they given up some of their values or things that are important to them or activities and that sort of stuff, so they're sort of unhappy on that level, but you have so the two of you are sitting there sort of, oh, gee, I miss the days when I got to go out with the girls, or I miss the days where I went to go and play golf, or I miss the days X, Y, Z. You can fill it in. So you've got two people there with the values probably are still there, but they've been suppressed, changed by expectation, either from the relationship or, as you said, family or society. And then it's just two very unhappy people. And now the problem is that, as I said at the beginning, values that are similar create a friendship. It creates this connection between the two of you, but it's actually not what drives the passion. It's two of you together intimately in the way that you can't really have in any other relationship in your life. That actually comes from the things that are not common. So there's differences between the two of you, whether it's differences in value or activities or whatever, but we want to be very sure that we can make sure there's always a bit of a difference, because otherwise you just end up cloning yourself onto your partner, and they do to you as well. We end up really flatmates and terrible intimate partners, and that makes it very, very tough situation. And we can all think of people, and I'm sure maybe some of us have even been in a situation where it's nice to be at home. You don't even have a real reason to be sad or upset, but it's just like living with a flatmate. It's not like living with someone that you just care passionately about and really want to be intimate with on that level as well. So that's what we call polarity.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is that this sort of can slide into that sort of realise it's happening, but or there's the spice or left the relationship type feel, but you can have it back.
Oh, absolutely.
It's just through awareness, and that's what we're sort of talking about tonight, is to bring some more awareness around maybe you're experiencing this in your relationship, and or you're looking at going into a new relationship, being able to go into that with eyes open and a little more self-understanding, so that self-knowing, so that you can go in knowing where you want to start from and where you want to kind of head to with that relationship.
Absolutely. And a little clue, other than feeling like you're living with a housemate, is if you start looking outside of that union of the two of you for stimulation, and that could be a sexual stimulation, obviously finding another partner, or it could be like, oh, we need to go and get some counselling, or we need to go down to the sex shop and grab some special toys or whatever. Not necessarily the case. You start to look at where you can build that passion and create that polarity again between the two of you. What things have you given up in yourself, and things that you love to do, and that your partner has given up in that time when you fell in love with them? What were they doing then that created those differences and gave the polarity? And not just in that, but really in any union, any two-person relationship, the polarity is based on the femininity and the masculinity, and that doesn't even necessarily need to relate to your gender, does it? No. So one person could be masculine in their core and the other person could be feminine in their core, but it doesn't necessarily that's the woman, that's the man. It just means there's one more than the other in any relationship, and even in a same-sex scenario, you'll notice that one of the partners is more masculine in their core and the other is more feminine in the core, and that's what makes it work, doesn't it?
Yeah, it causes that polarity. So, yeah. And the interesting thing about your core, whether you're feminine at your core or masculine, is that it's something that you don't need to stay in just because it's your core, it's the core who you are sort of thing. You can be a bit of a chameleon with it. So we were talking about it today that, you might, as the female might go to work and have to kind of do masculine, have masculine aspects to that job. But then when she comes home, if she's feminine in her core, it's really important to let that masculine go and step back into the feminine energy that she is at her core, and more than likely her partner is masculine in his core or her core, and so that would create that polarity again. If she gets home though and the partner is masculine in their core and she brings her masculine home as well, what happens? Obviously there's no polarity, so no spark.
Yeah, absolutely, because you got two of the same. There's no difference between the two. And the other thing that's happened as well is from the male front, because obviously as women we've sort of been told, you've got to be really strong and you go to work, you're equal to a man, which is fine. Also have been told to become sensitive new age guys and to sort of drop the masculinity and not be tough. And I'm not talking domestic violence or any of that sort of stuff. That's not relevant here. I do have an opinion on that, by the way, to do with suppression of masculinity, but that's not for today's topic. But basically, and a lot of men these days have been brought up by single mums as well, and there's nothing wrong with that, because they will source a way of getting that masculine influence in their life. But if it's not something that's demonstrable to them on a daily basis, it does make it really hard for them to connect with what it's like to be in a committed relationship. So and how that should work, between a dynamic between a man and a woman, and how they should work together. So this sort of almost emasculation of the male in our society has contributed to this lack of polarity as well. So and then now even worse, what have we got? We've got gender neutrality stuff going around. So now it seems we've got this insane thing. Well, I call it insane, but I guess to people who feel like they need protecting, it's not. Is that if we're getting to the point where we can't even define ourselves as or that we're just going to get to a point where we're all just human, that's going to create even more issues with our polarity as well. And really that's a reflection of us trying to change the whole world, because we've got a few people who are struggling internally with their own inner journey. And if we actually use those resources to help people connect to who they truly are, help them to form necessarily from a gender perspective, but at least a perspective where they know themselves, then we don't have to control the whole environment around us. It means we can all be happy to say, hey, I'm a woman, you're a man, and we can sort of get around being who we are in our core, and just be making sure that everybody has been looked after with their own inner identity. And that's more important than trying to manipulate, adapt for those people. So I think it would be a much better solution for them as well as us, because we can actually then connect and own who we truly are.
Squeezing things in even smaller, and the other concept is about not doing that and being free and expansive sort of thing. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. So but I think at this point in time we obviously don't have the tools to cope with that, so we'll just try and get everyone to be not too committed. So the other thing was that we wanted to talk tonight about, one of the things that's really important is to know yourself. You need to really know who you are, what you are in your core. Do you feel more feminine or more masculine? And your partner, what are they? I know that I've had patients in the past, couples, and the man was very effeminate and the woman was actually quite masculine, and it worked. It worked really, really well, though. That couple, very, very strong. But they knew who they were in their core. That's all that really mattered. The polarity was there, and really, for some of us, it really does mean that we have to do the inner work. We have to find out who we are, what's important to us, what are our values, because from that point, we actually can satisfy most of our own needs. We don't depend on the other person. We don't become codependent. We don't have this whole emotional manipulation going on that we need to control the other person in order to get the outcome that we need. If we know ourselves, it's completely relevant to control anybody else. And then girls, we stop testing the men quite so much. We stop making it about, hey, did you pass my test or not? Because that's not really good. You know, men running around on eggshells all the time, and vice versa. So we want to make sure that we're not putting them in a scenario, we're testing them because we're feeling a bit off today. It's better that we're in touch with ourselves, we know who we are, and ourselves, and make ourselves feel secure and even self-loved and self-cared for, self-nurtured. Far more important that way, because actually from that point you can be a better lover for your lover. Makes much
taking that responsibility to find that level of emotional intelligence sort of thing where you know you've got this, and you don't rely on anybody else to kind of hold you up sort of thing. It's it's a very disempowering position to put yourself in. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, it's, if you get fearful, that's when the relationship's likely to crumble, or they leave you or whatever. And, it's not a fun situation whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, well, I guess the other thing too, the interesting thing about the intimate relationships is that we can get a bit lost with regard to what love actually is.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a societal thing too, that, we think that when we come together, we meet somebody and they're awesome and we find them beautiful and really special and all the good stuff. And we find ourselves in a state of infatuation that we confuse with being in love, deeply in love, and so that sort of forms the basis or the foundation of the relationship. And if that relationship continues, then in our minds, if it's unexamined, if we just roll on without any thought into what's going on at all, then or unconsciously, then we find ourselves down the track and potentially wondering whatever happened to this relationship. We used to be so in love, but in fact, we used to be so infatuated with each other. Love's a really different thing to infatuation. And I think it's important to understand what love really is, and to be able to, again, work within yourself first to so that then you're able to actually love the person that you're in the intimate relationship with and others.
Absolutely.
So key to love is unconditional, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we're at retreat, we talk about values as there's ones that we deem as very, very positive, and the other side, the very, very negative. And on that scale, so infatuation has to be balanced out eventually. So you're putting someone high on a pedestal, making them amazing and fantastic and all this sort of stuff. At some point, you have to balance it out. So eventually, if you put that person on the pedestal, they're going to end up in the pit. So it goes from something like infatuation to complete disgust, or infatuation to hatred, or infatuation to any of those really negative things. It's likely that it's going to balance itself out in that way. So the person ends up going from the pedestal to the pit, or vice versa. You end up going from the pedestal to the pit. They all of a sudden despise you and don't want to see you or have anything to do with you. But love, really, if you think about it, when you love someone and you have that unconditional love, they should be able to get away with anything. But I don't even mean get away with it. There shouldn't be anything that they do that influences that. But that's because the love is coming, as Craig, because we've actually created that, and you feel love. All you're actually feeling is a reflection of what you've created for yourself on the inside. That's the only place you get it from. Craig can't give me love. He can look at me and feel love, and I can look at him and feel love, but he can't actually give it to me. Right? There's a whole thing, we talk about energies and all that sort of stuff and the energy field and all that sort of thing, but he can't give me love. It's something that we get from the inside out. So again, if you find yourself horse trading with your partner, if you did this, I did that, you know, oh wow, I did 7 household chores this week and you've only done 2, therefore you're an asshole. Therefore,
horse trading is an interesting one though too. It's one that, again, if you're sort of living on autopilot, you might have probably even thought about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, what's this horse? It's where you have this expectation of each other. Usually it's a two-way street. You expect that if you put the garbage out or whatever, that your dinner's going to get cooked, or everything.
Or he went off to play golf, so or whatever.
Yeah. And it's ongoing, and if now that you know about it, you just start to observe throughout your day and see if you can identify, and if there are, probably how many times a day you have this expectation that you're completely unaware of before. It's not necessary, and in fact, when you start to release the need to have an expectation
or a scorecard, which is literally what happens. It's like,
yeah, then you free yourself up, so you make space for more of your heart to kind of come into the relationship.
Absolutely, and you actually feel more able to serve, because it's not this tit for tat thing. It's definitely, look, I just love this guy and I'm just going to take care of X, Y, Z. And I know that happens in both ways, and I never have to take score, because it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. We both have a functioning house, we both have income, we have this, we have that. We don't keep score, there's no need for it. So so that's a really important thing. I just thought we'd jump quickly back while we've just got a couple more minutes, just a little bit about the feminine masculine side of things as well, just a couple of qualities of those, because sometimes we forget where we sort of fit in that realm. Do you want to talk about? And a few words here. Typical. So actually we'll start with that one. So the women, they love to talk a lot. You might have noticed that women like to get together and they have a chat. Hubby comes home and how was your day, darling? And hubby says 2 words, and then the wife, he asks in return, how was your day? All of a sudden it's a big. And that's literally because they postulate that what was happening in the tribe back in the day is that the men would go out hunting. And of course, when you're hunting, quiet, they had to go out and collect all the other things like berries and maybe some crabs and that sort of stuff. So they would go out as a bunch and go and find this food source. So what the women would do is come back at the end of the day, and they would describe exactly how they got to find, say, for example, the berries that they got for that day. So I went down the hill and I turned left at the creek and I went over and there was a log and we crossed over the log and then we did this and, there was a couple of crabs there. We caught those as well, so we took those on the way back. And then we went across this field and there were some purple flowers and they were beautiful as we walked through that little field there. And then there was like trees and blah, blah, blah. And then we found the berries. And then on the way back, we took a slightly different route, but we made sure we crabs and we blah, 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 blah. So there's this berry story that goes on, and that's to describe where to find the food, because that type of food doesn't matter if you talk. The berries aren't going to run away, whereas chasing off an antelope or a kangaroo in this country, you don't have to make too much noise and then we've got problems. So women, we love to talk.
Men, we love peace.
So it's just chill out a little bit because his day's been pretty busy. Just wants to be able to sit down. And again, this happened in the tribal situation because once they got the animal, they were pretty exhausted after running around after these beasts. And so the women often would sit around and prepare the meals. And again, still talking, not stopping, looking after the kids. We still do it today. And I'm not saying this is gender-specific roles because it's actually quite fun to be in the kitchen cooking together and doing things like that. And that's to do with our bonding as a human. That's what we love to do. And that's male and female, by the way. So we're talking away, creating some chaos. And men are just trying to make all this chaos smaller and trying to sort it out. So, of course, when we're talking about our day, we'll tell our man about our problems. We'll be like, oh, and this happened, and she said that, and oh, that. Oh, sorry, that was the microphone. And this happened, and that happened, and then he's just going to try and
fix it.
Fix it.
That's what we like to do. We like to fix things. Give us a problem so that we.
About it. She wants to be heard, she wants to be, or whatever needs to happen, and she actually probably doesn't want it fixed. She just wants to be heard. And then, of course, the women, they just love to be feeling fulfilled. They just like to fill up, and they make things big, and they dance around, and they get all flowy and all this sort of stuff. The men,
we like to release. We like to simplify things. So what we find is complicated, we'll just box it all off and tidy it up and piss it off.
Yep.
Job done.
And they really like a challenge. So this is why the guys will often take on these really crazy, amazing things just to, I'm going to take this really challenging big thing and I'm going to crush it and I'm going to make it small, and then I'll get to feel peaceful afterwards. Mm-hmm. So you might recognize that some of those characteristics are very similar in just one activity that you tend to do together, making love. Okay, same sort of thing. So it's a good little sign as to, what's more feminine and what's more masculine along the lines of the passionate side of the intimate relationship. Mm. So, have you got anything else to add?
No, just that, when you get off the call, when you go away from the call, it'd be really cool to just sort of reflect and see if you can sort of work out what you think maybe you are in your core. If you're a man, are you masculine in your core, or are you feminine in your core? Because when you understand what that is, there's no right or wrong here either. But once you understand what that is and you start to actually live that way, you start to express yourself in whatever way that is, there's specific things that activities that or interests that you would undertake one way or the other. A deep sense of fulfillment in life. So that alone is quite a key thing to be able to discover for yourself. So I just sort of encourage you, once you tomorrow or whatever, when you go away and just thinking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is something you have to experiment with a fair bit, because I know I'm feminine in my core, but I hate wearing makeup. You might notice it's just not something that I like to do. It just feels goopy on my face. Okay. Nothing to do with whether I feel feminine or not. But say, for example, today I was doing some painting, which I really love, and Craig was doing some woodwork and some drilling and all that sort of stuff, and that's sexy. Like, I find that sexy. He's doing this manly stuff, and hopefully with me and my little paintbrush in my hand doing my thing, hopefully he found that in the same way. So but that's the polarity, that's that difference between the two, that they're coming together and really building that polarity between the two people in a relationship. And for us, it's us tonight. So there you go. Now, the other thing that was a really good point, because I was just going to add to that now, if you're not in a relationship but you want to have a relationship, you become extremely attractive no matter what. So it's only unattractive if you're not living according to who you are and not being authentic. And unfortunately, when we get out there on those first few dates, it's all about, selling. We're trying to convey our values in a way to the other person that makes us look like a good package deal for that person, particularly if we initially like what we're looking at. But it's a joyful relationship that we want to last for as long as possible in this lifetime, then we need to make sure that we understand who we are and that we can, the other person is going to have enough in common that we can have lots of fun together, and enough difference that we can actually have that passion together as well. So yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway, really looking forward to getting some feedback on our live tonight. And if you've got comments or little things you'd like to add or questions, pop them in the comments. We'll post this up. And enjoy. We're looking forward to interacting with you during the week, and we'll see you soon.
Great to see you on the call. Have a good night.